Alright, so we both know why you're here. You've been trying to EQ vocals, you're losing your mind, you're just not getting it. Maybe your vocals just aren't sitting right in the mix. Well, I'm here to save you and give you some useful tips to get a much better vocal sound. So that being said, let's hop straight into the video. First things first, today's video is powered by LANDR. LANDR is a fully automated mastering suite that you can use. You can upload your mixes and get finished, polished Spotify radio ready masters. Definitely check out the link in the description. LANDR is free to try, so you can try it out. And if you do decide to sign up, you can use my coupon code for a nice fat discount. With that being said, let's hop into it. All right, so when it comes to EQ, the first tip and the most important tip or trick that I ever learned was to remain objective. Okay, what people, especially beginners, do when they start mixing is they just immediately pull up an equalizer and just start EQing. Okay, this is the most non-objective thing you could do, because essentially what you're doing is you're just blankly going in and starting to EQ, and you usually end up with a really terrible result. Okay, so the first thing I always do is I identify what actually needs to be EQ'd. Okay, if I'm listening to a vocal and I say, okay, after 10 seconds of listening, the vocal sounds dull. Well, what am I gonna do? I immediately think, let me try to boost some treble so I can get the sparkle out of that vocal, bring it to life, right? I'm kind of thinking objectively. So that's the first thing that I always do. And as you can see in this mix, I've kind of got this Neve. This is a free EQ that you can download from Analog Obsession. Just a kind of nice Neve EQ. And the first thing I do is I go, this vocal was sounding a bit dull. Why don't I boost a little bit of that 7.2? Okay, so I just boosted some of that and I ended up with this nice sounding vocal. Next thing I thought was, hey, maybe I need to remove some of that kind of low end. So let me high pass out some of that bass because I don't need it. It sounds a bit murky. Then I do that, right? Those are objective EQ moves, right? And when you can start thinking that way, you're immediately going to start kind of looking at your mix and starting to listen and really kind of feeling, hey, you know, is the vocal just dull, or is it maybe low in the mix in terms of volume? Maybe I can pull up the volume. Oh wow, now the vocal starts to sound a bit fat, right? Okay, maybe there's a little bit too much body. I can then go ahead and start EQing and carving out those frequencies. Okay, so definitely remain objective and you're going to get much better results. All right, so tip number 2 is going to be that you need to work from the bottom upwards. Okay, now what I mean by that is when it comes to EQing vocals, it is so important that you always deal with the bass first and then work your way up in the mix. And the reason for that is because generally when you remove the unwanted bass out of a vocal, you're generally doing about 60 to 70% of the job. Okay, if you start doing all sorts of other strange things, you're introducing this kind of imbalance in the way that you're working. Okay, because if you, for example, cut a whole bunch of treble like I did, or kind of mid-range, and then you go ahead and reduce the bass, then you might end up with the vocal that doesn't sound as good as it did before. It may even sound worse than what it originally sounded like. Okay, so the way that we work, especially in studios, you know, you can even see it, for example, on this SSL channel strip. Let me actually just pull one up real quick. You know, if we just pull up something like the SSL, you can literally see that the filtering section has been placed first. Okay, now on a channel strip, it's literally the first part of the EQ module. They want you to filter out frequencies that you don't like. That way, you're not going to be kind of spending all your time trying to figure out where, you know, all this weight is coming from in the vocal, or why it sounds a bit kind of too bass heavy, whatever it may be. So what I like to do is, whenever I got a vocal and it hasn't been high passed, I'll generally just start pulling up that high pass filter, finding a level that I like, and then starting to work on all of the other frequencies. I find that when I do this, I boost less, okay, because I'm not trying to correct all these things that I could just correct by using a high pass filter. All right, my tip number 3 is to not go overboard on the EQ. Okay, the kind of statement I was taught, you know, to live by, or the code of honor to live by, is that less is more when it comes to mixing in general. Okay, especially EQ. It is so easy to go overboard on adding, especially adding. You know, I see this with beginner mixes all the time. You're adding and adding and adding, and there's just no space for anything to naturally exist in your mix because you've added all of these kind of artificial pushes into the mix, right? You don't need to do that. So less will always be more in mixing. As you can see, I've got one boost at 7.2K. I've got a couple cuts. Okay, every mix is going to be a little bit different, right? Sometimes you're going to have to remove more from a vocal. Maybe you might have to add a little bit more because maybe the vocal is a bit too bassy, and removing that bass doesn't quite give you that kind of sparkle that you want. But stay objective. Less is always going to be more. But nonetheless, man, if you enjoyed this video, definitely check out my courses as well. I have a vocal recording course and a vocal mixing course, which you can check out, where I go in depth on how to record and mix vocals like a pro. Check out the LANDR link in the description. So important for independent artists to have a good, solid master. If you spend all your time mixing, definitely get a good master. But nonetheless, man, you know, hope you stay well. I'll check you out next time. Peace out.